So yeah, possible and probable. They both start with P, but they're very different. And unfortunately, it seems most people are more focused on the possible than the probable. And the probable should be something that we should be looking at a little bit more. Chris, you have some thoughts on that?
Sure. So I teach an entire one-day class on mental agility, planning, and preparation skills, and it's centered around in part risk management, recognition, prime decision making. Figure out what you're facing, then create a menu of options, and then you can, when you encounter a situation 22, you just pull a plan off the shelf and execute, and then flex off of that recognition, prime decision as needed. And so when it comes to probable versus possible, something I think is interesting. We were talking about home defense earlier before we kicked off. And it is true, I have a sweatpants gun because I don't want to be caught on the toilet with my gun on the other side of the house dealing with, Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or whomever. But that being said, what I think is interesting is that if you talk to 100 gun owners, I'm not talking concealed carriers, I'm just talking 100 people that own guns, universally, what is the most common answer for why they bought, say, a handgun or a home defense shotgun, or I already spoiled it there? It's to protect myself and, protect the home. And then you ask them, even if they have their concealed carry permit, do you carry it every day? Well, no, I carry it when I think I'm going to need it. And, Tom Gibbons has a great saying about that. If I think I'm going to need a gun where I'm going, I'm just not going to go there, which is probably a better plan. But it's really interesting because one of the places that people will most often either leave their gun at home or take some little C camp tiny pistol that they don't know how to shoot well is their local convenience store right around the corner from their house. Whereas statistically speaking, the place I'm most likely to need my gun, the place I should take my Roland Special with my weapon mounted light, my red dot, my 20 round mag, is the convenience store right around the corner from my house. Because if I have to shoot somebody, as a private citizen in my lifetime, that's probably the place going to happen. Either that or the grocery store I go to every week. And so people, I think, do a poor job, and I certainly have. I'm not, I've learned these lessons myself, but I think people do a poor job of sizing up that, is a mass shooting in your church or at your local Walmart, can that happen? It's possible. Sure, it's possible. But generally speaking, it's going to be the crackhead walking up to you at the gas pump and sticking something in your face, demanding either your wallet or your keys or both. And so start there. And once you have that problem and the technical skills and the tactical decisions pre-made to deal with that problem, then we can start worrying about hunting down the team of mass shooters in your local Walmart.
One of the things I found, because I investigated a lot of officer-involved shootings as a cop, and then a lot of criminal shootings, that type of thing, of real-world actual applications of lethal force and shooting. And one of the things I found, including multiples of my own, is that everybody's little tactical fantasy of what their use of force incident's going to look like never seems to look like that. The shootings you envision yourself being in don't look like that. They're absolute utter complete chaos. Situations you predict that everybody likes training for and getting out on YouTube, and they got their timer and their one-dimensional paper target, and they're doing this thing that this is how my ATM robbery is going to go off. It's not how your ATM robbery is going to go off. And the shooting, just multiple unassessed targets. That's not going to happen. Your 1 second, draw, your 1 second speed reload, all this, none of that's going to happen. So the reality is, I like to see people try to prepare for a real world. And again, back to what your mission is and what the probabilities are. And I think the other thing we can maybe segue into here at some point is what kind of responder are you to? I think it was Greg Ellifritz who came up with the high-level responder. I've been around Chuck enough. I need to start hanging out with Chris because we live apparently in the same city, which, we need to fix this. I can't help myself. I'm sort of a high-level responder. It's what I've done my entire life. If somebody does something stupid, I tend to go get involved as much as I tell myself not to. And the reality, though, is most people are not. And you have a ton of people out there preparing to be a high-level responder that they're not. And I'm like, this is going to be your first rodeo on this. This isn't going to be my first shooting. It's going to, I work some EP stuff, and I had guys, young guys come up. How come you won't roll with me in the car? Because, dude, I don't want to be here for your first shooting or your first, vehicle ambush. I don't want to be here for your first time that you're all trying to excited to be in. The reality of this stuff is, the mission for most people is breaking contact, period. That's it. Break contact, get away. And better than breaking contact, don't be in contact to begin with. But we have all these people out there who are now preparing, for ISIS attacking at Walmart, and that you're going to run in and protect everybody from that. And I think it's sort of a ridiculous concept on its own. When the reality, I think the big hero of one of the recent ones was the soldier from with a CCW from Fort Bliss out in El Paso, herded up all the little lost children and got them out of the Walmart. That to me was the best thing you can be doing rather than hunting down active shooters. So, we recently had an incident with my wife and I have been, picked to be a victim of street robberies. I think I'm up to about half a dozen of them. And, that to me is my reality these days is people want to rob Santa for some weird reason. And countering that's more important to me than, this other stuff. And, I think a lot of people get focused on these missions that aren't theirs. And, who you willing to die for? These days, I'm not really willing to die for a whole lot of people.